What's up, Periscope? Ty Crandall here with Credit Suite. Today we're diving into 10 different factors that you need to know about your Dun and Bradstreet credit report. So these are factors that affect your ability to get loans and credit cards and credit lines. So if you're at all interested in getting business credit, if you're interested in getting business credit lines, if you're interested in getting loans for your business, then a lot of these are based on the quality of your Dun and Bradstreet credit score. So today we're going to dive in and decode 10 things you should know about credit scores and what's on your profile, where data comes from, etc., so you could best manage your Dun and Bradstreet credit profile and score to have the best chance of getting loans, credit lines, and credit cards. Now, for those of you that do follow regularly, you probably already know this. This is our last Periscope. We've decided to do one live stream a week instead of two, and we're going to go to Facebook solely for our live stream. So don't worry, we're still here. We're just going to take this Wednesday 4 o'clock spot and change this over to our Facebook Live, even though we've loved being here on Periscope for the last couple of years. So if you're not already, find us at facebook.com/credit suite. That's Credit Suite, S-U-I-T-E. And next Wednesday, no, the following Wednesday, I think I'll be out of town next Wednesday, next Thursday, we will be starting with our first live stream on Facebook during this time slot. We do it every Thursday at 11 now, but we'll be changing the time. So it will be awesome. You're going to love it. There's a lot of people there, and bringing both our Periscope and Facebook audiences to one platform has a lot more communication, a lot more comments, a lot more stuff going on, so you guys are really going to enjoy it. All right, to the topic. All right. So we're talking about 10 different factors that you need to know about your Dun and Bradstreet credit report. So if you don't know anything about Dun and Bradstreet, they are the oldest and largest credit reporting agency, period, okay? They've been around 10 years before the first consumer credit reporting agency ever even showed on the stream. So on the scene, a lot of people think that business credit is new, but it's not. Business credit, commercial credit, business credit reporting has been around a long time before consumer credit reporting even existed. Now, when you're building your credit with Dun and Bradstreet, what you need to know is that you must have a DUNS number to even get in their actual system to be able to get a Paydex score. And you can go to creditsuite.com/DUNS to get your DUNS number for free from Dun and Bradstreet. In order to have a credit profile with Dun and Bradstreet, there's two things you need. You need to have a DUNS number. You also need to have at least 3 trade lines, 3 accounts reporting on your Dun and Bradstreet business credit report. If you have 3 trade lines reporting and a DUNS number, those are the keys to getting an actual Paydex score. You've got to have both for them to report. That's one of the most common that I get. I have a lot of people come in and comment, hey, I got accounts, but Dun and Bradstreet isn't reporting them. It's not that Dun and Bradstreet's not reporting them. It's that they will not even populate a credit report for you unless you have a DUNS number and unless you have 3 accounts reporting to Dun and Bradstreet. So if you want to build credit with Dun and Bradstreet, you have to get 3 accounts that do report to them that you're paying as agreed. Pay them as agreed, because that's what your Paydex score is based on, and you need to get your DUNS number. Again, you can go to Credit Suite /DUNS, and here's how you spell it, D-U-N-S, to be able to get that free Dun and Bradstreet credit score, okay? So Dun and Bradstreet credit reports, they generate credit reports based on data in their database from suppliers, from collection companies, from all these type of places. The government gives them information. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Okay, so they all populate these reports, put scores like Paydex on them that determine your risk of defaulting on potential loans, credit lines, and this is what lenders are using to determining whether or not you're going to get approved. So they have about 250 million companies in their database. About 120 million are active companies, about 130 businesses are out of business. So that's kind of telling of how risky business is, that there's about 10 million companies out of business than active ones even in their database, which is actually pretty interesting, okay? So again, a lot of the data they get is time in business, industry classification, number of employees. This comes from Secretary of State records. It comes from the IRS. It comes from information you're putting on applications. It comes from Yelp credit profiles. It comes from information they find on your website. A lot of the stuff that goes onto your D&B D&B reports is really self-populated. It's stuff that you're putting on applications for credit that then leaks and makes it to your actual D&B credit report. So these are things that you should know. Now, if you want to get a good Paydex score, it's pretty simple to do. You just need to pay your bills as fast as possible. As soon as an item is shipped, as soon as you have the ability to pay it, you want to pay it, because that's what your Paydex scores are based on, is basically how you're actually paying your bill. Now, again, as I mentioned, D&B gets information from a lot of different sources: public records, okay, tax liens, judgments, lawsuits. They get information from the IRS, tax filings, tax liens, etc. They get shared data from lenders, from suppliers, from credit issuers, from creditors that report the data to them, okay? They get it from news sources, press releases, Yelp, online listings. This is why when we talk about building business, we talk about one of the most important things to do is what's called congruency. Your business name, your business phone number, your business address. These things need to be the same everywhere your business is listed online, because reporting agencies like Dun and Bradstreet are getting it from Yelp. They're getting it from Facebook. They're getting it from your website. They're getting it from all these online sources. So if your name is misspelled with the Secretary of State or misspelled with Yelp, or your address is off, it creates all kinds of issues, because Dun and Bradstreet populates a file for you based on your business name and address. So if they pick up somewhere online that you have the same name but a different address, they will populate two DUNS numbers for you. Okay, we had it happen for us. Then you have to contact Dun and Bradstreet to merge those DUNS numbers into one profile. So again, you need to know that D&B gets a lot of information from a lot of different places. So make sure everywhere online that your business listed that the information you have is congruent, because they're getting it from Yellow Pages, they're getting it from Yelp, they're getting it from all of these sources. So they get it from collection filings. These come from collection companies. It has to do with the collection agency's name, the status of the collection, the date it was filed. Big LLC, welcome, thanks for coming in. Disputed amounts, how much you owe, all these type of things come from collection firms. They come from UCC filings. These are when lenders notify the reporting agencies that you have outstanding liens. They come from the federal government, okay? Grants that you have, loans, contracts, debarments, whether or not you've paid your SBA loan, for example. Debarment has to do with if you've committed fraud. All this kind of information can make it to your business credit reports. Business registration, your incorporation, the date, the current filing status, the number of employees you have, all those type of things they get from a lot of places, including being able to come in and get the information from the Secretary of State. Incorporation filing, again, shareholder information, any of those type of things can come from the Secretary of State records. So this is very important, because as we'll about here, some of D&B's credit scores are based on the financial risk of your business. Well, they're hoping that you'll supply them tax returns. But if they don't have your tax returns, what they do is they rely on the number of employees that you have to determine your financial worth. Meaning if you're a small business with 1 or 2 employees, you're a much higher risk than a business that has 10 or 20 employees. So keep this in mind, because when you file your annual reports and they ask you how many employees you have, you might not even think anything about it. But that information directly translates to your financial risk that Dun & Bradstreet shows on the credit report. So how do they get the number of employees? It typically comes from these filings that come from your any of this information with annual reports that you're using when you're filing for your annual reports, for example, or any of the data on your annual reports shows up on your business credit reports. And again, they also look online, Yelp, they look at Facebook, they look at your website, they look at any information they can get anywhere, okay? So you've got to make sure that the information you have online anywhere is information you're okay with having on your business credit report. Guys, it's come to a point where D&B puts a street view of your business on your commercial credit reports. So if you're using a home address as your business address, like a lot of people do, then expect to see a picture of your house on your commercial credit reports. We have a lot of clients that are stunned to see that. So again, any information online is for the taking for the reporting agencies. And keep in mind, reporting agencies' entire job, consumer and commercial, their entire job is to gather data and sell the data. That's what reporting agencies do. So business commercial reporting agencies aren't regulated the same as consumer. They're very good at collecting loads of data and populating it on your commercial credit report. So anywhere you have out there online can easily end up on your commercial credit reports. Jazzy D, welcome. You can ask Google to blur it out. You can. There's a lot of things, but the bottom line, what you need to know is that what you don't want out, what you don't want on your commercial credit reports shouldn't be online. Now, we use a service called Yext, Y-E-X-T. There's many other options that are cheaper, and Yext takes all of our data, and we can put our correct information in one place. They make sure it's correct with hundreds of directories. Service like that's not a bad one to have. Yext is more expensive than what you probably want to pay, but find a service like that that takes where you can change stuff once online and it makes sure all of your listings are congruent. That's a big deal when it comes to getting loans and credit cards, and a big deal with what shows on your business credit reports. Because if you've ever disputed something on a business credit report, I'll tell you, it's not an easy thing to do in a lot of cases, because the reporting agencies will say, oh, that data came from somebody that supplied it and won't tell you who, and it's hard to get them to change it, and you don't know who supplied it to them. So just keep that in mind. Prosperous, welcome. Thanks for coming in. Things you should know, right? You know, that D&B populates these reports. You need 3 accounts, trade lines reporting to D&B and a DUNS to get a Paydex score. There's 250 million records on file. This is the biggest reporting agency, including bigger than Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Okay, you know now where they're getting all this data from becomes very important. So we haven't even got to our 10 things, so let's dive in. The first thing is called Delinquency Predictor Score. Now, there's 2 kinds of scores that Dun and Bradstreet has. There's ones that predict your risk of future default, and there's ones that are based on past performance. So these are called predictive scores or performance scores. And the difference is this: a performance score strictly is a numerical value based on past performance. That's it. How you've performed in the past, calculated into a number, and you get that number as a score. That's all it is. Perfect example is here. Let's take a look at the Bradstreet's Paydex score, for example, is a numerical value of how you've paid your bills. So if you pay your bills on time, promptly, you get an 80 score. If you pay your bills on average 14 days late, you get a 70 score. The score you get is a numerical representation of exactly how you've performed in the past. That's it. How you pay your bills calculates the score. That's what a performance score is. It's based only on your past performance calculated into a numerical value. Then they have what's called predictive scores. Predictive scores take your past performance amongst other data and they put it into a calculation to predict what will happen in the future, predict how you will pay in the future. So when you look at any of Dun and Bradstreet's scores, and they have about 5 that you'll mostly see, they either predict your risk or they are a reflection of your past performance. They're either a performance score or they're a predictive score. Christine, welcome. Thanks for coming on my first Periscope. And now, Christine, you are here on our last Periscope as we translate to Facebook Live here next week. Okay, so the Delinquency Predictor. Predictive model, so it predicts your risk of going late. Okay, it uses historical data to predict your risk. So it uses past information based on payment performance to predict how you will pay in the future, okay? So that's what the scores do. Now, it ranks based on the chance of your late payment. So what it's trying to do is it's trying to predict your risk of going late based on your past performance, your chance of going late again. So that's what Delinquency Predictor is. It's kind of like the Paydex score, but the Paydex score isn't a predictor. It's only based on performance. Delinquency Predictor takes how you've performed through your Paydex score, and then it predicts how they think you will perform, how you will pay your bills based on the actual future, okay? So that's what that is. The financial stress percentile, another word that you should become familiar with the reporting agencies. Percentile, anytime we see percentile, what it means is it means they are grading you against other businesses in your industry. The industry that you have, making sure it's correct is very important. They get the industry from the tax returns you submit to them, and the Secretary of State records has your industry. Make sure you choose your industry wisely, okay? And also, Yasmin, thanks for coming in. First day on Periscope. So make sure you choose your industry wisely and make sure it's correct on your business credit reports, because what these percentile scores do is they rank you against other people in your industry. So for example, if you're in the top 85%, that means you score better than 85% of other people in your industry. So we are a software company. That is our industry. So if we have a percentile score that's high, let's say a 90 percentile, then it reflects that we are better than 90% of other software companies our business credit scores are. That's what a percentile is. See a percentile score, it means how you rate against other people in your industry. So we have a financial stress percentile. Now this is basically like a financial stress score, okay, which basically has how much of a risk you are of filing bankruptcy. That's exactly what a financial stress is. So what it means is it means you compared to other people in your industry, what is the actual risk of you filing bankruptcy versus all the other people in your industry? That's what it is. So financial stress with Dun and Bradstreet, whenever you see financial stress, this is basically determining your risk of going out of business, closing your doors, stopping operations, filing bankruptcy. There's a million different phrases that describe the fact that your business basically fails. Financial stress determines the risk of your failure. Financial stress percentile is the risk of your failure compared to other people in your industry. So the risk is important because we're going to talk about a financial stress score. So why would you need this? Because you might be in a high-risk industry like restaurants, where the industry itself has a high risk of default, but there are people that lend money to restaurants all the time. So they understand the risk of going to restaurants. They get it. They understand it. They don't need a score that says that restaurants are more risky than other businesses. They understand it. What they want to know is how your restaurant compares financial risk-wise to other restaurants. That's why people would want a financial stress percentile. Now the financial stress score, again, financial stress, we've already determined this is your risk of going bankrupt. This isn't a percentile, this is a score. So this score reflects your financial risk or your risk of filing bankruptcy. Basically, it predicts how likely you are to fail in the next 12 months. How likely is your business to close its doors in the next 12 months? Seeking legal relief from creditors, stopping operations, voluntary withdrawal from operations. It all says exactly the same thing. Your business fails. You close your doors. Now, this score ranges from 1001 to 1875. The best score you can get is the 1875. That's your lowest risk of failure. The lowest score you can get is 1001. That's your highest chance of failure. So that's the financial stress percentile and the financial stress score. Now, the financial stress risk class is 0 to 5, with 1 being the least likely and 5 being the most likely to fail. Okay, so this is just a simplified risk class of where you are, how high or low a risk you are on a number from 0 to 5. Okay, your automatic 0, okay, if they don't even know that your information. That's what you get a 0 for. So again, financial stress risk class, your risk of going bankruptcy on just basically a 0 to 5 scale. Financial stress score percentile. Okay, 1 is the most likely to fail, 100 is the least likely to fail, so you want 100. Again, we can see that it's a percentile, so that means that it's comparing it to other businesses in your industry based on your score. So it's looking at the financial stress score, and it's weighting it against other people in your industry. So it's basically combining the financial stress percentile and the financial stress score to come up with a financial stress score percentile, okay? And again, this is all about voluntary withdrawal from operations, basically closing your door. So it's kind of an accumulation of these two. Guys, notice something here. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 that we've talked about. 4 scores that only reflect your risk of going bankrupt. That's how common businesses fail. Remember, D&B has 250 million records on file for businesses. 130 of them are out of business. They've shut their doors. 120 are active. So it's telltale. A lot of businesses fail, unfortunately. So much to a point that D&B has 4 different calculations that just determine your risk of failure. Jerome, welcome. Thanks for coming in. So it's that big of a deal. So many businesses fail that there's so many different ways that they even gauge the risk of business failure to tell people that may lend you money, okay, that you're a SIR rating. SIR. Supplier Evaluation Risk Rating. 1 is the least likely to fail. 9 is the most likely to fail, okay? So again, will you file legal relief from creditors, So what this basically does, and this only affects you if supplier. So let's say that you make widgets, and to make widgets, you need a component, and you order the component from a supplier. The SIR rating is where you can look at the supplier score to see if they're at risk of filing bankruptcy. Because if your supplier's at risk of filing bankruptcy, the last thing you'd want to do is give them 10 grand for an order, then they file BK and your 10 grand is bye-bye, right? You don't want that. So if you're not dealing with suppliers, you don't care about the score. If you are a supplier, you do care about this score. And if you deal with suppliers, you need to know about the score too. Because if you're ordering from suppliers, you probably want to get their Dun and Bradstreet credit report just to see their actual risk. Know more about what their real risk is. And if you're a supplier, then you want to look more into the SIR rating because you want to have a good SIR rating so people that buy from you are looking at your supplier evaluation rating that they can make sure that you're low risk and they're comfortable borrowing. So 7, credit limit recommendations. Dun and Bradstreet, Equifax, and Experian all have these. This is how much money you should be lent. This is their recommendation of what kind of credit limits you should be given, okay? So this is basically looking at a lot of your scores, how you pay, how you use your bill, how you pay your bills, what kind of money you spend, and it's basically talking about how likely you are to pay your debts within a next 12-month period. So ultimately, here's how it works. A lot of people screw up building business credit. Because I know, and look, I wish NAV showed those too, but there's a reason you can get NAV so cheap. It's because they don't have all this. Keep in mind, NAV is less than $30 a month. Credit monitoring through D&B is $160 a month. So it's a lot cheaper because it doesn't have all this extra information on there. So here's what you need to know. How much money are you going to be lent? How much of a credit limit are you going to be given? How high is this credit line you're going to get? How high is the loan you're going to be lent? Here's where everybody screws up building business credit. People think about building business credit as a means to an end, okay? Meaning that they come in and what they want to do, I need to set up my business credibly. I need to get my reports. I need to get vendor credit, store credit, cash credit. How long does it take me to build business credit? Meaning everybody wants to know how long it takes to get to the end, but that's the wrong way to look at it. What you need to do is find credit in the vendor stage and in the store stage that you're actually going to use, because that's what will get you higher limits when you get to this stage. And that's all because of this. Because if D&B sees that you get a bunch of accounts, but you're not using them, or you're only spending less than $100, then they'll never recommend you for a high amount of credit. It's just simple. They're not going to recommend somebody for a $20,000 credit limit credit card when the most they've ever used with all the vendor and store credit they have is $100. So don't think of vendor credit and store credit as a means to an end. I got to get this to get to Visa cards. No. If you do that, you'll never get to a Visa card. Because to get to a Visa card, you have to have at least one credit card that has a $10,000 high credit limit. Well, you're only going to get to that if you get credit and use the credit. That's why you need to get credit and use credit, or get credit that you're actually going to use. Don't go just get vendor credit anywhere. Get it at Quill, because you can get marketing supplies, and you can get printing services, and you can get yard signs, and you can get office supplies, and you can get everything from Quill. So you can easily spend a bunch of money at Quill. Do that. Get a store credit card with Amazon and spend $1,000, spend $2,000 a month on the card and pay it off. Because when D&B sees that you're paying your bills as agreed on time time or early, and that you're getting them using higher amounts of credit, they jack up your recommendation of credit. And the higher they jack up your recommendation of credit, then the more money you're actually going to be lent. It's that simple. That's what your loans are based on. That's what your credit lines are based on. That's what your credit cards are based on. It's all based on the recommendation of credit from the reporting agency. Does Amazon still report to DMB? Yes, they still do report. I'm not positive. I can't remember off the top of my head if it's DMB, but I'm pretty sure that. So number 8, composite credit appraisal. Okay, so what this is this is basically 1 to 4 score. Okay, second, it's basically a rating of where you fall between the 1 and 4. So it rates your credit worthiness and analyzes your payments, your finances, your business age, all of this to come up with an actual risk score. Now 1R, 2R basically mean that they show the number of employees you have. Whereas if you have higher than that, then that means they have your financial statements. Here's what you need to know. Here's what that is. This is interesting. In the commercial world, you have a lot more control over your scores than you do in the consumer world. And here's how it works. When they look at your financial risk, they're looking at your tax returns. Here's the problem. You have to supply those tax returns to them. So if you don't willingly supply the tax returns, if they can't get the tax returns, they default and they gauge your financial risk based on the number of employees you have. If they don't have that, then they ding you and you don't even get a rating high enough to calculate a score. You don't even get an appraisal rating. So that affects multiple scores you have with D&B. So here's what you need to know. If you have tax returns and they're good, meaning that you're showing revenue increasing, you're showing some profits, send them to Dun and Bradstreet. They'll see you as a lower financial risk. Box truck. So no accounts show your limits, just your high purchases. Well, here's how it works. On credit reports you see, you're only going to see the actual amount of credit that you've recently used. On credit reports that lenders and credit issuers see, and I'm looking away here because I'll show you what I mean. On lenders that credit issuers and lenders see, they actually do see your limits. So although you'll never see your limits on your credit report, others that look at your credit report will. So here, I'll show you. That recommendation of credit. Here's an Experian credit report. And you can see credit limit recommendation. You can see right here, and let me see if I can come to 100% here to zoom this in. You can see that credit limit recommendation here. Now, when we look at the actual trade line data, what it says here is it says this is the recent high credit you've used. So when they see that you're using less than $100, they're not going to come in and recommend you for $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. Okay, it just doesn't work that way. This is based on several things, but for one thing, it takes into account the amount of recent high credit limit that you're actually using. And here, let me see if I can pull up another report here. Christine, this is actually an old report for you. So if we look at this, we see a recommendation of credit that's much higher, okay? And we also see here that the amount of credit that's being used, the recent amount of credit has been higher. Now, a couple of these don't show, but we see as this goes up, those amounts will go up as well. So again, it's not directly tied to it. Okay, this isn't the only factor. It's also based on payment history, and we see here that there's no late payments. So this is in large part driving it. The number of accounts you have, the amount of data they have, the amount of accounts that are paid as agreed. In this case, many accounts. Okay, we've got 6 accounts. We've got different kind of accounts. We've got perfect payment history, and we've got these accounts being used. That's what's helped driving up this amount of recommended credit. But again, as you're seeing here, there are no limits on commercial credit reports. There's not even credit issuer names. There's the category or industry they're in. And we also see here that we can see the recent amount of credit you've used, but not the limits. Lenders and credit issuers do see the limits. So you need to know that based on this composite credit appraisal, 1R, 2R, what does this mean? It simply means what data do they have? Do they know the number of employees you have? So there's 3 categories you can fall into. 1, they have your tax returns. They know your employees. 2, they know your employees. They don't know you have your tax returns. 3, they don't have anything. They don't know your employees. They don't know your tax returns. At that point, you are such a high risk because they can't even score you because they don't have enough data to score you. And that scares them because with all the places they go to get data, if they don't have enough data on you to even give you a score, that makes you automatically very, 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 very high risk. Okay, here, and I'll show you what that looks like with an actual credit score. So you can see this is an actual credit score from Experian where somebody is very high risk. You can see how high risk they are. Remember, here's that financial stability score, right? You've learned through this stream that financial stability means risk of bankruptcy. Look at how high risk this person is. Extremely high risk. About as high risk as you can go. Why are they high risk? Well, basically, primary driver, they don't have trades. Second, they don't like industry. Okay, and when we look here, we see somebody that has absolutely no credit. This is the end of the report. There's no trade lines here. It's all zeros. So just because they don't have data, they're saying you're about as a higher risk as you can go of filing bankruptcy. Now, the good news is that as we look back to this other report, we see that this person went from very low risk or very high risk to very low risk just because they added one account on their credit report. So it doesn't take a lot to move you to low risk, but they have to have data. When they don't have data, what happens is that's when you get a bad score. So what you need to know is that if you have good tax returns, get them to Dun and Bradstreet. They'll score you higher. If you don't, they're going to look at the number of employees you have, which usually comes from what you're telling them on your annual report. So again, both of those things are within your control. But if they don't have them, then it's going to be a problem. Does high limits affect my score? It does not affect your score. Your actual Paydex score, no. But some of these other things, these risk scores that have to do with your business failing, then yeah, your payment history and your limits come into these type of things. Why? Because if you have a bunch of available credit, you're a lower risk of going bankrupt, right? Think about it. If you have $100,000 worth of available credit that you're not using, are you a lower risk than somebody that has $0 of available credit? Of course you are. So your limits will calculate in to your financial stability, meaning your risk of going bankrupt. Your risk of going bankrupt is lower if you have higher limits. So it's not a factor in your Paydex score that's only based on how you pay. Remember, performance scores, how you've performed versus predictive scores. So your limits don't matter at all for performance scores because performance scores are just based on how you've performed in the past. But predictive scores that predict your risk of default, absolutely your limits do calculate into those. So it's great question, important things to know. So here's that Paydex score. It's a dollar weighted rating on how you pay your bills. 1's the worst score you can get. 0 is the highest scores that you get. And again, I already showed you how this works. It's literally based on how you pay. You pay 14 days late on average, you get a 70 score. You pay 120 days late on average, you get a 20 score. It's that simple. But it's also mean it's weighted. So here's what weighted means. Weighted means that your higher limit accounts calculate more weight into the overall score than your lower limit accounts. It's that simple. So if you have a $10,000 limit credit card and a $1,000 limit credit card and you had to go late on one, you'd want to go late on the $1,000 limit card because it carries less weight into your overall score as does the $10,000 limit account. What you need to know about weighted average is this. What you need to know about Paydex is this. Pay your bills on time or early, you get a good score. It's as simple as that. If you ever have to go late on your lower limit accounts first because those calculate less weight into your overall score than your higher limit account. And the D&B rating. Now this is the financial strength indicator. It's based on the net worth of the business. It's based on your financial health, okay? It looks at the business size, i.e. employees, and the composite credit appraisal. That's what we just talked about. What information do they have? Do they have the tax returns or not? If not, they're looking at employees. So that comes in and calculates here what your D&B rating is. Now here's what you need to know. Number 1 score from D&B, Paydex. Number 2 score, D&B rating. So that means that the Paydex score is really based on how you pay your bills. This takes into account financial strength of the company, and it's the second most important score that they offer. So why you need to know that, because as I just told you, whether you supply your tax returns to D&B or not is based on you. That's your choice. The number of employees you have is based on what you're putting on your annual reports, again, in your control. So the second biggest score from the reporting agencies is nearly completely in your control. Whether you decide to send them tax returns and what you're putting as your employee count on your annual reports, what you do in those two areas will determine what your D&B rating is. And your D&B rating is the second most popular score from Dun and Bradstreet, which is the biggest reporting agency. Pretty cool. The other cool thing is Paydex Score is based on how you pay. Again, 100% easily within your control. You pay your bills on time or early, you get a good score. So if you get business credit that reports to D&B, you pay your bills on time or early, okay, and you keep using the credit and using it wisely, meaning that you pay your bills back and you're using more and more credit. That gets your limits higher, that gets your recommendation of credit higher. It means you're lower risk of filing bankruptcy. Then you supply your tax returns to D&B. They have those. You have a higher employee count on your annual reports. All those things calculate into low risk across all of these scores. And low risk means you get more money, and it also means you get better terms on loans, credit lines, and credit cards. So I'm going to wrap up. Too much information to go through, a whole look and a review. But let me do a brief overview. D&B, biggest reporting agency in the world, even bigger than any of the consumer reporting agencies, and been around a lot longer than the consumer reporting agencies. They get data from a lot of different places, from the IRS, from public records, from collection companies. When lenders file UCC filings saying you have liens, from the federal government, the IRS, grants, loans, contracts, debarment means any kind of fraud you've committed. Business registration and corporation filings come from Secretary of State. They're looking at Yelp. They're looking at websites. They're looking at Facebook. So this means all of your information online needs to be congruent. When we look at these scores, we've looked at a couple different kinds of scores. Predictive scores, which take data and predict risk of future default. And performance scores, which are based only on how you've performed in the past. Delinquency Predictor, very similar to D&B's Paydex Score, but Paydex Score is based on how you've paid your past bills only, and Delinquency Predictor predicts how likely you are to pay your future bills. Financial stress always means your risk of filing bankruptcy. Equifax, Experian, D&B all have them. Percentile means where you rank compared to other companies in your industry, whereas score is just a score overall, not taking into account industry. So D&B has 1, 2, 3, 4 scores, all meant to depict your risk of filing bankruptcy. And these are based on a lot of things, including how you've paid your bills in the past and other financial information, such as the limits that you have, such as the financials that they have, employee count, etc. You only care about this if you're a supplier or buying from suppliers. It rates your risk of default or bankruptcy if you're a supplier, okay? And then we've also looked at these things called D&B's Composite Credit Appraisal and Rating, which are based on the number of employees you have and the financial health of your company per your tax returns. You control these, determining whether or not you want to send D&B your tax returns and the number of employees you're showing on your annual reports. So that's a wrap for our final Periscope probably ever. I'm going to miss you, Periscope. I love you. You got me into live streaming 2 years ago. I will miss you. But don't worry, we will be back. We are on Facebook next Wednesday at 4 o'clock Eastern. We do a Facebook stream now every week. We do a Periscope stream every week. We're going to make these more impactful, more information than we've ever done before, but we're going to do it by combining the two into one. So moving forward, we will be on Facebook Live every Wednesday at 4 o'clock Eastern starting next week. And we have some awesome sessions. This whiteboard is getting ripped out of my office, and a huge chalkboard, maybe one of the biggest you've ever seen, besides like at a college, is getting put right on this wall. It's going to be awesome. A lot less words on our whiteboards and chalkboards, a lot more graphics, a lot more lessons. It's going to be awesome. So I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday at 4 o'clock Eastern on Facebook. If you want to find us there, go to facebook.com/Credit Suite or our website. CreditSuite.com, top right of our page, you'll find the Facebook logo. Like and subscribe, and you'll get notified when we go live. That's CreditSuite.com/Periscope. We've got a great guide you can get as well. And if you want to notified when we go live, engage with us on Messenger. When you go to our Facebook page, our Messenger will pop up. Say something in there. Engage with us on Messenger. And then that way we'll notify you through Facebook Messenger like 5 minutes before we go live and as we go live as a reminder, so you'll know and get a reminder of whenever we go live. Remember, these are interactive. It's the only kind of interactive training that we do where you can post questions. It's a live Q&A. I will answer any questions you have during these live streams within reason. Okay, so that being said, it's a great opportunity. I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday at 4 o'clock Eastern on Facebook. Again, creditsuite.com, top right of the page, you can find us. Make sure you engage in Messenger so you get reminders. And don't forget to follow us on our other social channels as well. YouTube, we have hundreds of videos that will help you as well, getting financing and getting business credit for your business. I look forward to seeing you. Bye. I loved being on Periscope here. But again, it makes sense for us to combine these into one live stream. So I will see you next Wednesday at 4 o'clock Eastern on Facebook, which is weird to say because for 2 years I've said, meet us 4 o'clock Eastern on Periscope. I will miss you all, but I will see you hopefully all on Facebook. Thanks for the loves. Thanks for the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of loves and engagements and everything we've got over the last couple of years. We'll see you next Wednesday at 4 o'clock Eastern on Facebook. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. See you on the other side.